Well, Sabrina, I was excited because I love when I get to get the books ahead of time. And as you can see, I got sticky notes, I got highlights, and I really want to bring to attention because I think this is one of the most powerful books I've read this year. And I'm really curious what inspired you to write Stand Alone and what truly does it mean to stand alone?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. What I wanted to share was something that I knew would be uncomfortable for me. And I think our best is when we're uncomfortable. And I've been blessed to have gone through a journey in business that I wouldn't trade for anything else. And I've been able to develop myself. I've been able to surround myself with very, very strong people. And the things that I went through, I always tell everyone, like, I endured through a lot. And I wanted to be able to write a book about my personal experiences because for a lot of us, Deborah, when you read the book, what you're hearing is the internal turmoil that a person's going through. And I've had people reach out to me and say, like, that was painful to read. And I'm like, imagine how painful that is to have inside of you. That's why you get it out, so you can help someone else that might be experiencing something similar and thinking, why is this happening to me? And I just want you to know it's happening to a lot of us. You got to get through it.
And that internal dialogue, like you really captured in the book of how you have all these it's kind of tormenting, right? Because you think you should do one thing and then you think you should do another. And there's one part in your book where you talk about let your life speak for who you are. And you have learned to detach from your situations. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about the act of detachment.
Yes, I love this. I think, especially for women in business, if you can hear me, one of the things that I've been able to do is desensitize myself. And people think like, wow, that sounds like, you think in business, they tell you to be emotionally involved and have great empathy for people. I'm saying that you need to do those things too. But when things are happening to you, you have to be able to see yourself outside of yourself. So you're not so emotional that you make bad decisions. And I share this with a lot of people because emotions can take you to a place where you're not supposed to belong. And I've seen people make very bad decisions when they're too emotionally attached to a situation. And so what I've been able to do is detach myself in that moment, calm myself down, quiet all the noise that's happening, because really that's what emotions are. It's a lot of extraneous noise that we're allowing to come inside of us in that moment. And if you can just remember that you never make decisions in the dark, right? Get yourself back to the light, but you got to walk there first. So if you can detach from your emotions, desensitize yourself, see the situation for what it is. A very powerful thing that I've learned is it just is what it is. Don't put too much emotion and thought into it, and then act based upon who you want your future self to be remembered for.
Yeah, I really love that because I think I used to not like that phrase, it is what it is. Because to me, when people used to say it, made it sound like there was this resignation, right? There's this resignation. I cannot do anything about this situation. But now I've come to realize it's to remind people to be back into this moment, to be in the present. So now I know what I can do about something.
Yes, that's really powerful because for a lot of us, when you think it's a resignation, it really is because you have to kill that part of yourself that's leading you away from where you're supposed to be. And we like to feed the weaker version of ourselves because it's comfortable. We like to be around people that console us. And when we're like, I'm angry, I hate this, they're like, yeah, you should be angry. You should hate this. When someone else says, I wouldn't give in to the anger right now. When someone else says, you're being a little bit too sensitive right now, you almost have to kill that version of yourself, resign it. You have a nicer way of saying, I'd be like, kill that person dead. You're saying, I need to resign that part of me. So you're more
Right.
polished than I am.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm definitely a work in progress.
We all are.
Which leads me to, this is the one thing that really stood out for me in your book, particularly, was one of the biggest mistakes women make when it comes to making mistakes. And when I read this, I had to read it a couple times because I was like, oh my gosh. And look, I just flipped to it at this moment. And you said to reframe things and say, what would a man do in this situation? And I was like, oh, at first I was like, it felt like a gut punch because I'm like, I don't want to think like that. But when you said one of the biggest things that women do differently than a man was, and I'm going to let it out, I want you to expand on this, but it really hit me in the gut, was don't be talking to everyone about your mistakes. And I was just like, oh, I witness and probably have caught myself in that situation. So I'd love for you to expand on that lesson that you have here, because it was about having equality with men. But when our emotions arise, women seek comfort.
Yeah. So, this is a very tough thing for people to understand, because if you go back to like hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of years ago, right? When women were at home and the man was out there hunting, right? The woman was responsible for talking and connecting with other women so that they could know what the truth is, so that they could then go and keep their family safe and secure. And the man was out there hunting, and he wasn't talking about the problems that he had at home. He was about displaying his courage and going and getting the kill and bringing it home, and his bravery. And so it's not a bad thing that you have that inside of you, because that's a strength that women have in themselves. But when you're in performance mode, close your mouth. Stop spreading all the negativity about yourself, because what this shows to people that could be your competitors, could be people that are, out to overtake you, is you're weakening yourself to your opponents. And I know we live in a world today where people want to believe like no one is my opponent and everyone is for me. But in business, that just ain't true. Okay. Business is war. If we're talking about raising a family, if we're talking about being a respectable part of the community, I'm talking about business in particular. When you're playing to win, and in business, you better be playing to win, because if you're losing, don't even get involved in business. Okay. You have to be able to compartmentalize like how you're feeling, and then not just talk about your weaknesses to everyone, and not come from a place of like, I want to connect with this person and make them my friend, and then make this sick thing that happens with women sometimes, where we say like, oh, that happened to you, that happened to me too. And then we lower ourselves and lower ourselves and lower ourselves. And all of a sudden we're like, wait, this is not inspiring anymore. Men are not doing this. Men are not doing this. I promise you. I've sat in the room with a lot of very strong men. They're not like trying to weaken themselves in the eyes of one another.
Yeah.
They're like, it's a bravado thing. They're like, I did this. No, I did this. I went up to you in this. And they're showcasing themselves.
A big difference in approach. And, I can think of times when women, we use vulnerability, and it's important to have some vulnerability, but not to the point that you're exposing all of yourself. We all know that we all have some weaknesses, but to the point of divulging so much that you lose your power.
Right. And this book too is really for you to gain your power back, because you were born powerful. And that's the real message of this book. It's like, remember and recall who you really are, because all of life and the situations that you go through, they're designed to like weed out the weak. And the people that make it in the end are the ones that endure through it. But how do you endure through the hardest of times? You have to remember who you are. You have to remember what you've overcome in the past. You have to remember all the things that you've done, achieved, and keep that light inside of you glowing. And you don't do that by lessening yourself in the presence of others.
Yeah. And that's something I really love. It's really encouraging for people to remember who they are. And one of the parts that really, people get caught up in comparing themselves to others. And it was it was interesting because I'd never heard it framed this way before, is having the courage to stop competing with others because you're not in the same game. And, you know, I always hear about stop comparing yourself to others, but I have never heard it in the phrase of have the courage to stop competing with others. Comparison is truly a form of competition.
Yes. You know, comparison is also the thief of joy. And when people do this a lot, and this is the world we live in, right? We're always eyeing up ourselves relative to someone else. And when you really start to understand that I've come here to dominate in my space, dominate means to overtake. So it's like you're irrelevant. You know, does a lion fight with a fly? No, the lion doesn't even take its energy to like interact with the fly. The fly is just there. And so when you get into this space of I want to do something at a higher level, then I have to like rise above the competition. And instead of getting affected by what other people are saying to you, because that's really what people are trying to do. And this comes back to me being a mother. You know, I have 3 small children. So as a mother, when my children say to me like, oh, this person said this to me today, and they look at me and I say, well, what did you say to yourself? Because it doesn't matter what anyone says to you in this world. What matters is what you say to yourself and what you know God spoke into your existence. And that's really what it boils down to, right? So when you're dominating, you really have the courage to stop competing because you honor your original and creative self.